This next one, people are making a much bigger deal out of it than they really need to, just because people are just like, what? But comic book studios need to be at Comic-Con. That's the whole point of Comic-Con, which, I'm not going to lie, we follow pop culture news for this podcast and just in our free time. Dude, I didn't even know Comic-Con was happening this year when it was happening.
Yeah,
So I think
I
that's
was
the biggest
surprised.
omen there. But the news that we're talking about today is that both Marvel and DC will not be at Comic-Con this year, to which I'm just going, in other news, water is wet. This has been a
Yeah,
changing landscape for a few years now, especially in the entertainment world for in regards to news. Like, it used to be that Comic-Con was the big name for dropping big information, and to a certain extent it still was. The last time we were all gathered together, I think it was 2019, they had Marvel had that big panel that they announced, like Blade and everything else would be coming eventually. But since the pandemic and the rise of certain things within other companies, it kind of puts Comic-Con in a tough situation that I figure going forward, we're not going to get a lot of Marvel and DC stuff, because look at who represents both and what they bring to the table. Disney has D23 that they're basically, I think that's every 2 years or so, and that's like Disney basically bringing all their big assets to the table and making all their big announcements. That way their stock prices can go up. A certain thing happened last year with DC called DC
mm,
Fandom, which utterly and ridiculously embarrassed Comic Con last year. Comic Con got caught with its pants down of how poorly Comic Con at home went down. And DC Fandom shows up like a month or two later and just blows it out of the water in terms of virtual Comic Cons at home, which gets me even more excited for this year's Comic Con. One, because Josh and I are working on something for this year's event, and two, with a year under their belt and a lot of stuff already in production and done, as Black Adam has finished production, this year's DC Fandom is going to be big. So if you've already got these two things, D23 and DC Fandom, why would you shell out all this money to send your
mhm.
company and your products to someone else
Yeah,
so that they have the headlines? It's kind of like the same mentality for streaming services. Why would you loan out your product when you can keep it in-house and keep that product for yourself and keep the headlines on you? I enjoy Comic-Con just as much as the next person, but I am a little bit worried for its future because studios are putting their own Comic-Cons on instead.
yeah. Which was weird because it would end up being, from what I understand, a little cheaper on their end, which is
Yes.
unfortunate. But I personally haven't been to a con, so I can't say, you know, what it feels like, and we should never, delete those kinds of emotions from the nerd fandom is, I guess, is what I'm going to use. But like at the same time, guys, pandemic is changing everything, and
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, and big groups together like that are not going to be as common as they once were, just because we're more aware of things. I think, um,
Now,
especially in San Diego.
to be fair though, I'm not saying all cons will be gone. I'm just saying
Hmm.
I think cons will no longer be the avenue that studios go to release or hype up fans. I think like the one in Orlando here is called MegaCon. I think that'll still exist. I think those type of cons where people get together will still happen, but they'll be for fans to get together. They won't be for breaking news like San Diego Comic Con kept building and building and building in terms of popularity and in terms of just scale every year and announcements like that happened every year. And I think eventually that bubble was bound to burst as studios are realizing, oh, that's a big lucrative market. Let's cut into that. It's kind of
Hmm.
like the theme park integration of like each property wants to go to a different place and there's money to be made there. And that secret wasn't going to be secret for very long. So I'm not saying Comic Con will be going away or cons in general, but I'm saying news wise, it's gonna start to dry
Yeah,
up. I think like smaller
I would
production
agree.
studios might still be involved, but with other companies putting their own versions of events on, the days of Comic Con being the big I need to be in Hall H on Saturday is gonna go
Hmm.
away.
Yeah, no, I agree, and to a certain extent, um, I've always kind of been annoyed with. like San Diego Comic-Con, just because like not everybody can get there, and you end up dropping like really really cool teasers and stuff, and then those teasers get leaked by fans, and so then we end up seeing everything anyway. So it's like, what's the point of doing this special thing for just Hall H if it's going to end up on the internet anyway? I don't know. It is what it is. I'm not really surprised that they're not going. If I'm reading the signs, as they say in Silver Linings Playbook, I'm not surprised by this at all.